This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work with another Wolff Responds. I want to respond to election 2020 now that the actual day is behind us and the uncertainty deepens with every passing hour. I want to try to draw some lessons from what we already know. And that is that the country is roughly split between those who voted in the main for the Republican Trump and those who voted in the main for the Democratic Biden. I don't want to shortchange that there were other folks on the ballot, most particularly Howie Hawkins of the Green Party. But in our monopolized political space, we permit two dominant political giants to exclude everybody else by regulations, by financing, by all the mechanisms used, typically by monopolists, to keep out any real competition. How hollow the celebration of competition when it excludes something as vital as the political parties that we're supposed to have freedom of choice among. We have 30 kinds of toothpaste to choose, 20 kinds of breakfast cereal, dozens of car companies, but just two parties seems to be all we need. What competition? But that aside, why do half the people vote for Trump and half the people for Biden? At a time when the capitalist economic system we all depend on here in the United States is falling apart. Let me just briefly dramatize how it's falling apart, because you don't really need it since you, the American people, know it. For the last 30 years, the People's Republic of China has grown 3 times or more faster than the United States. It has therefore caught up with the United States, and in a growing number of fields, they surpass us. And that will only continue. In this horrible year of the plague, 2020, every major economy is shrinking, including the United States, with one exception, you guessed it, the People's Republic of China. A country with 4 times the population of the United States has a tiny fraction of the number of people sick or dead from COVID-19. The failure of our system to preserve our public health, to protect us with preparations for this virus, and then to contain it, the failure of our capitalist system to do that is stunning. But so is the collapse of our economy, the fact that 25 million people are without work, that savings are being used up, that schools are closed, that educations are interrupted, that housing is under strain, evictions are looming. I mean, how many indices of economic and political failure do you need? So of course the American people are desperate. They look around. They see, they feel, they suffer from all of this. And they're scared to boot. And what do the 2 major monopoly parties offer? Well, let's start with Mr. Trump. He offers what to a desperate population? Bluster, political theater. I am going to return greatness to all of you, which is understood as he's gonna do something about the desperate situation we find ourselves in. I mean, maybe he can. He's rich, he's famous, he says that's what he's about. Maybe I'll go with that. It's something, and I'm facing lots of nothing. And now let's turn to Mr. Biden. Desperate you are, says Mr. Biden. Don't you worry. I'm not crazy like that Trump fellow. I don't talk like that, act like that, look like that. I'm a quiet, calm person. I'm part of the Democratic establishment, which I have been all my life. I'm part of the party's inner circle. You know, like the Clintons and Obama and all of that. And I'm going to choose another one of them Kamala Harris. We are party animals. And that's who we are. And here's our plan. We're going to go back to normal, to pre-Trump normal. And the mass of people go, oh, thank you. At least we won't have that crazy Trump. But you know, these two candidates, not surprisingly, are offering pretty much the same. To the desperate people facing a collapsing U.S. capitalism, each of them offers a return to something better, the good old days. For Trump, the good old days are when we were great again. And for Biden, the good old days are the normal kind of politics of gentlemen's agreements between the establishment of the Republicans and the establishment of the Democrats. You know, everything that went before Trump. Now, of course, a thinking person would understand that these are two different ways of talking about how things were before. But the problem is, you know how we got to where we are now? By going through what we went through before. Going back doesn't solve anything. It simply takes us back to the same road we were on that got us here. And it's going to do it again, only faster, because we've learned the route. We should know better. We could know better. We do know better. But to have an option to choose better, you'd have to have more than two parties. You'd have to actually allow and support multiple parties to bring different perspectives so that the public could evaluate them and actually have freedom of choice. You know, 3, 5, 10 parties like so many other countries, for example, in Western Europe, have, and have it all along the road. But we don't. We limit ourselves to two old, dead political establishments, each of them promising a return to some fantasized, normal, or great time. This solves nothing. And no matter who finally wins, we have to face the fact that our political system is breaking down, despite record numbers of people voting, for the same reason that we're so uneasy and so desperate in this moment when the reality of our collapsing economic system shows that we do understand our predicament, sort of. But we're still hopeful that the snake oil salesmen in the two monopolizing parties will somehow find the way to save us. They never did, and they're not going to do it now. And now the problems are real, and they're accumulating. And we don't have the political, economic system to deal with them. That's the lesson of this election. That's the lesson of the disaster of the COVID-19 experiencing in this country and all the rest. This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work.